Call the meeting to order. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, all members are present. Approval of the agenda, is there any changes or corrections to the agenda? Council? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as approved, or as presented?
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Dave, second by Diane. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. Approval of the minutes of the February 21st, 2018 regular meeting. They were in your packet. Is there any changes, corrections, clarification? Hearing nothing, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the February 21st, 2018 regular meeting?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Heidi, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Diane. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll abstain.
Abstentions?
Aye.
Motion carries 3 in favor, 2 abstentions. This now brings us to our public open forum. Is there anyone here that would like to speak to the council? Is there anyone here that would like to speak to the council? Is there anyone here that would like to speak to the council? Seeing no one, our public open forum is now closed. We will now go to reports and presentations. EDA report. Vicki?
So the EDA met today in regular session. It was a regular monthly meeting. It was a brief meeting. They had one item on the agenda to discuss, and what they discussed was the TIF plan for the proposed TIF Project 1-12. So they had the draft of a modified development program for the district, and then also the new tax increment financing plan. The draft has been sent to the county and the school district for review. They have a 30-day comment period, and this is what you will be having a public hearing on here in April. So I will be providing an updated draft to the city council well in advance of that meeting so you can review it as well. But it was at the EDA so they could take a look at it and see if they had any comments or concerns. So they had no action items for you tonight.
Park board report?
The park board met last night. It was their regular session as well. In one of their reports, I think you're aware that they had the area churches had a bonfire event at the outdoor rink on February 21st. They had about 150 youth attended, and it was very, very well accepted, and so they hope to make that an annual event. And we also suggested, if the weather's too warm, you either move it up into January, or if they want to do it end of February or early March, we might accommodate them at the arena minus the bonfire. But it was a good opportunity for them to get together. I had a couple action items which you will not be acting on tonight. I'll have that at the next meeting. And the two of those are they accepted one of the arena attendant retirements, and that'll be on the next meeting, as well as the appointment of the campground attendant. And unfinished business, they were working on the Conservation Park Shoreline Restoration and Fishing Area Grant. And because of some other delays, we won't be applying for that one this year. They'll be waiting till next year. And we met with the Baseball Association regarding the concession area use and electrical upgrades at J.C. Park, and so they met on how we want to accomplish that. And also their new business was looking at a sound system upgrade to the Civic Arena with the Hockey Association. And they do have park board resignation, which is the only action item you have tonight, which is on your agenda later on.
Questions? Okay.
Just, I see the new dock must be here.
The fishing pier did arrive. That's the pier that goes over by the band shell.
Yep.
And so we'll be putting that out in the spring.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Okay. We will then move on to the hearing requesting for release of dog considered dangerous.
Okay, this hearing is being conducted at the request of Juana Sarmiento regarding the declaration of her dog Rocky as a dangerous dog and his impoundment. Rocky was impounded by the police department due to reports of him engaging with another dog in an aggressive manner. A previous report indicated he had nipped at a passerby on a bicycle, which caused a scrape and some bleeding. There have also been numerous calls regarding running at large, barking, as well as concerns for his care, including being tied to a tree with litter or no food. So that's kind of the very summary, and you do have more detail in your packet. How we conduct this hearing is first, Police Chief Fredericks, he'll present any further details and relevant evidence for the council, and I did attach a synopsis with you, the different police calls and what they entail. And then the council will ask questions of the chief for any clarification or further information. Then the owner will have the opportunity to provide additional information or to ask questions. And then the council will deliberate based on those information received. And it is the owner's request to receive the dog back. The city code specifically defines what's a dangerous dog, a potentially dangerous animal, what's considered unprovoked, and also what is a proper enclosure. It's up to the council to determine, based on the evidence, if the issues leading up to the declaration that the dog is a dangerous dog is justified. Some of those things are, has the dog caused bodily injury or disfigurement to any person on public or private property? Has he engaged in any attack on any person under circumstances which would indicate danger to personal safety? Has he exhibited unusually aggressive behavior, such as an attack on another animal? Has it bitten one or more persons on 2 or more occasions? And has he been found to be potentially dangerous, and or the owner has personal knowledge of the same if the animal aggressively bites, attacks, or endangers the safety of humans or domestic? So I did include the excerpt of the city code in here, as well as the police reports, and you have 5 options that you can consider. You can release the animal to the owner if you find that he does not meet the definition of dangerous dog or the information is not credible. You can uphold the information that the animal meets the definition of dangerous dog and order it destroyed. You can uphold the determination that it meets the definition of dangerous dog, but release him to the owner to be kept, kenneled, and cared for in a proper enclosure. And a proper enclosure is defined in our code of a kennel and locks, and he's chipped and those kinds of things. So there's specific things that if you release it and it is dangerous, that it has to meet. You can determine it to be potentially dangerous, which is a step below dangerous, and release the dog for rehoming outside the city where it'd be kept and kenneled. Or you can determine it to be potentially dangerous and release it to the owner with the condition that any future infraction results in forfeiture of the animal. So I've laid them out there, I read them, but you can refer back to them as you decide at what level does this dog meet and what you want to do with it. So I think then, Brian, if you want to cover what issues you have.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I guess just looking through the notes and the calls that we've had, I guess you would, I would think there's enough evidence there to deem it as a dangerous dog, or at least a potentially dangerous dog. If you look at the calls that we've had, and I'm sure some of the calls don't get documented, you know, we probably just go and take care of it and don't document it, but what we had 5 in 2016, we had 7 calls in 2017, and a few already this year with the dog, you know. The thing that bothers me with the dog, we get so many complaints of it's not being taken care of, it's tied up to a chain around a tree, no shade, no water, no food. We've checked on that situation, and that's been the case sometimes. Running loose, and then the other thing that bothers me, the trailer park, there's several children in that trailer park that bothers me, you know, with a dog running loose of that nature. So in saying that, I guess just, you know, the calls that we've had, I would say it fits pretty much under a dangerous dog. So that's my thinking for it.
Okay. Any questions of Brian?
Can you quantify how many people, separate individuals, made these calls? Or did it seem to be a certain person or party in particular?
You know, yeah, no, they've been a variety of complaints on it. Yeah, it hasn't been just particular one person. It's been several, you know, with that many complaints, it's been a pretty good variety of people. So a lot of people concerned about it, evidently.
Okay. All right. Does the owner of the dog want to speak? Want to come up to the... Hi.
I am the owner, and I think my dogs, there are troubles. It's not before, so I don't know what happened. I work all day, sometimes I gotta go to work, and I gotta go 5 in the morning and back at 6, 7 in the afternoon. So I know sometimes my dog don't have food or something, and so I understand it's danger for the people, but it's my dog. I buy the dog when it's little, so it's not bad. I don't know, couple months ago, it's crazy. I don't know what happened. I know he need more attention to, but it works, so
Okay,
it's true. You need to tell me if I can back my dog on that, that's fine. Thank
Okay.
you.
thank you. This will be an action item coming up. Is there any other questions of Vicky or Brian or anything? This will be the next item we act on, so. Okay, we will move on to our action items, which is approve the determination of disposition of the dog.
Okay, so you just heard the information that was presented by myself and the chief and the owner of Rocky, and that has been impounded, and he is in our city pound right now. These are the same 5 options that I read to you a few minutes ago, so you can certainly pick any one of those 5, and that is what we'll do moving forward. But those are release the animal, uphold the determination, uphold it but release it, determine it as potentially dangerous and release it for rehoming, or determine it potentially and release it to the owner. So you've got kind of different levels of what you can do there.
Okay. Comments, council's wishes?
I'm wondering, what are the odds of the behavior of this dog being rehabilitated if he is rehomed?
I'm not a dog whisperer.
No, and
I
I don't
can't
know
say.
if there is anyone here that could. But that's what's uppermost in my mind. I don't know if the dog was put in a different situation, if he would be better or continue on.
That we can only
Okay.
guess, I guess.
What are the steps as far as rehoming outside of city limits? I mean, what would that process look like?
What we would do is, we would keep the dog until a home is found. We'd give like a time period, say that you would rehome the dog within that period of time. And then, of course, we would need to meet the people that would be taking the dog, so they're fully aware of what they would be getting into. So,
Vicki, this is a type of a pit bull, from what I read.
it is some cross, yeah.
Yeah, and the police have been called out there in a short period of time for like 15 different times, Brian. I mean, it's obvious that the owner can't control the dog. And I wouldn't want him released in the public where he could bite somebody else. There's little kids in that park. I don't want to be responsible if that dog bites little kids, and I vote to turn him loose, rehome him. I don't know.
Yeah. I guess for my part too, I'd hate to send him down the road to
Yep.
another community where he does the same thing.
One of the things, looking at the list of police reports, there isn't a whole ton of evidence here that says it should be labeled dangerous, but there's a couple instances that would get it really close. And obviously on the reports that we've got, it's, it could be taken care of better and given a second chance. I'm personally looking at, determine it as potentially dangerous and rehome it outside the city. That way, whoever does take it and rehomes it knows that it's been labeled potentially dangerous, and it also releases the city of any liability if something does happen. Dogs, when they're not taken care of well enough, do get away, and they do tend to not associate well with other animals that I've seen, you know. Dogs will be dogs. So I don't know if anyone else has got any other comments.
What's the dog's disposition as it's been impounded? Is our staff afraid to go near it, or?
I guess you'll have to ask Matt that.
Actually, he's been quite
You want to come up here so it's recorded? Thanks, Matt.
As far as I know, when we've been handling it and feeding it, I haven't witnessed any growling or anything like that when we're feeding it. He's active, you know, he moves around quite a bit, but he hasn't done anything to any of us that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it seems to be pretty clearly qualified as a potentially dangerous animal.
Yep.
Based
Certainly
on,
is doing some aggressive things out there.
based on other animals and
And
people
well,
walking
it's
by.
people walking by, people
Yep.
riding bikes, or it's going after them. I
Right.
don't know that that's especially unusual in a dog, but
No, right.
What's,
why they need to be restrained.
what's the age of the animal?
He's about 2.5.
2.5.
I think that's how old he is.
So he's kind of beyond the age where different behaviors could be impressed upon him. I guess I would
Yeah.
defer to my,
Has he been neutered? I bet he hasn't.
Yes.
He has been neutered. Oh,
He's got a license and shots and all of that.
yeah.
Any other comments? Otherwise, I'll be looking for a motion to decide what we want to do. One of the 5 options.
I will make a motion that we select option 2, uphold the determination that the animal meets the definition of dangerous dog and order it destroyed.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Keith, second by Diane, to uphold the determination that the animal meets the definition of dangerous dog and order it destroyed. Any other comments, concerns? I'm personally am not looking at the destroyed part, but over what I can see on black and white, but if that's council's wishes, that's fine.
Yeah,
Comments?
I guess that's kind of my feeling. It's clearly potentially dangerous. I don't like the idea
Yep.
that it's released out there. On the other hand, I'm not convinced that it's a dangerous dog. It happens to be in a situation that is not, good for a rambunctious dog to be in, with people and everything. On the other hand, in a different home, Matt doesn't seem to have any difficulty with it. From what we hear, I suspect that under different conditions, it might be just fine.
Okay, any other comments, concerns? We have a motion on the floor to uphold the determination that the animal meets the definition of dangerous dog and order it destroyed. I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion fails. 2 in favor, 3 against. Do we have another motion?
I'd like to make a motion to, motion number, or I guess it would be option number 5, to agree the animal's potentially dangerous, but release it to be rehomed.
Okay, determine the dog to be potentially dangerous, release to the owner with the condition that a future infraction of the code will result in forfeiture of the animal?
Yes,
That's the one you're looking at?
yeah.
They do, in that situation, well, do I have a second? Do I have a second? Do we have a second? Motion fails for lack of a second.
I'm concerned that the dog is going to be returned into exactly the same situation he's in now. We know there's going to be another infraction. I would make a motion that we go with number 4. Dog to be potentially dangerous, and he needs to have a home where he can be taken care of that's less exposed.
Okay, we have a motion to determine the dog to be potentially dangerous and release the dog for rehoming outside the city where it will be kept, kenneled, and cared for. Do we have a second? Chair will second it. So we have a motion by Dave, seconded by myself. I have to tend to agree, you know, I've been around a few dogs that all of a sudden ran into the situation where they were mean and they rehomed, and because they were taken care of at the time, it's changed. So I don't believe in destroying the dog just because of a few instances. And if someone else can rehome it and change it, as long as we label it potentially dangerous, you know, I'm looking at the pure fact that it is somebody's pet. Even though they're not taking care of it well enough or whatever, and it has a running track record to destroy it, I don't think is the right way to go, so.
Is there a possibility that this dog doesn't get rehomed and ends up being destroyed anyways?
That's possible.
Yeah,
That would be a possibility, yes.
We'd have to put a timeline.
right. Okay, would that be part of the motion?
Just set a timeline, yeah. In
Okay,
a certain period of time to find a home.
okay,
You want a timeline on it? Or
yeah,
what?
if you want, it's your motion, if you want to
Gonna
amend
say,
it.
or we can see if that even passes and pick a timeline
Well, we can do
afterwards.
that too, yes. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Option number 4, determine the dog to be potentially dangerous and release the dog for rehoming outside the city where it will be kept, kenneled, and cared for. Any other comments? Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3 in favor, 2 against. Do you want to put a timeline?
Now, we should figure out a time, and I guess between 2 to 4 weeks, I think
I would
is
say no more than
no
a
more
month.
than a month. I think
Actu-
2 weeks would be a minimum to find a
Yeah.
home, so let's put a timeline of a month then. Is that,
Are we holding on to the animal?
Yes.
Yeah, he's down in
Okay.
our kennel.
That is not being sent to Stearns County Humane?
Not in this situation, if this motion passed, we'd keep it here.
Okay, okay.
I mean, at the option to rehome it, I guess it could go to
No,
Stearns
that's,
County
I
if they
guess I
want to.
wasn't aware, you know, if we were gonna keep the animal or not, so.
And I think a
And that
month
doesn't
is,
matter, I guess.
Month is
yeah,
doable.
more than generous.
Yes.
Yep.
Because most of the time, they hold them 10 days and they're down. Especially an animal like this. I mean, they've been called, the police have been called to this resident 15
Well, I think-
times. They've
you
been.
know, I
warned.
suggested a month. Maybe 2 weeks is, you know, if we're gonna find somebody, we're gonna find somebody in a couple of weeks. And I
Yeah,
can't imagine
yeah.
that suddenly they're coming in at the last minute.
Let's compromise, make it 3 weeks. That's more than generous.
3?
3,
Yeah.
let's go 3.
All right,
Okay. You want to
looking for a motion for 3 weeks.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll second.
We have a second to find a place within 3 weeks. Or the dog is put down.
Put down, yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 4 in favor, none, 1 against. Okay, thank you. 7B, appoint boards and commissions, HRA.
We have this one nomination for the HRA board members, board position for the board opening, and it is Donovan Leonard. He has been on the board before, and he's requesting to be reappointed. And so it is for a 5-year term, and it begins on April 1st, and it ends on March 31st of 2023. So we're requesting the appointment of Don Leonard to the HRA board.
Comments? He's served
He's been
numerous
before, yeah.
years on here, so. Do I have a motion to appoint Donovan Leonard to the position of the HRA board for a 5-year term effective April 1st, 2018 and ending March 31st, 2023?
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion by Keith. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Dave. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. 7C, approve appointment of part-time police officer.
With the appointment of Dean Junkels to full-time, the part-time position was open, and at the city council meeting on January 17th, the council gave general consent that the police chief reach out to finalists from the prior application pool to determine if any eligible candidate was interested. Chief Fredericks has spoken with finalist Brian Thorstead, who has requested to be considered for the position. He has completed all documentation and would be eligible to be hired based upon a successful background check and necessary physical and psychological exams. So we're looking to approve the appointment of Brian Thorstead as a part-time police officer contingent upon those items.
Questions, comments? Do I have a motion to approve the appointment of Brian Thorstad as a part-time police officer contingent upon successful background check and physical and psychological exams?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Diane, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Heidi. Call the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. 7D, authorize execution of master lease agreement, Verizon Wireless.
The City Council had previously approved moving forward with the negotiation of a master lease agreement with Verizon Wireless for the placement of small cell wireless facilities on city light poles. The master lease agreement outlines all the parameters of how the lease agreement will work, and then we'd have an individual supplement for individual locations as they are identified. The master lease has been approved by Verizon after several amendments from the League of Minnesota Cities and our own city attorney, Tom Mayer. It's a lengthy lease, but what it basically says, the city or Verizon will pay a lease payment of $250 a year for each location. They will become a customer of the public utility for electrical usage. They will remove and replace each pole it locates on with a new pole at no cost to the city. The required poles are more stout structurally than our existing poles, so they would be replacing them with new poles. The new pole then becomes the city's. All insurance requirements of the city will be met, and there are language for damages that's included in the indemnification. I think people were concerned if someone hits a pole, damages the antenna on the pole, and that antenna is their property and it's their responsibility. So basically, the city will benefit from new poles and an annual lease payment. The public utility will gain a customer. Verizon will have new locations, and the public will receive stronger, faster signal inside buildings and in the small cell areas. So at the present time, they have 5 supplements proposed, which is a little separate from this lease agreement, but I thought the one is at the corner of 6th and Main, one at the corner of 9.5 and Main, one on Main in front of Snap Fitness, one at the entrance to the truck stop, and the other one is at the end of Ash at the Walmart parking lot. So that's where we would expect to see these small cells. I do know that the school has an agreement with Verizon as well, separate from this, because they own that property for 3 more small cells behind the school. So that whole kind of area of town is going to be pretty well covered. So what I'm looking for tonight is to authorize execution of the master lease agreement and then the subsequent supplemental agreements.
Questions?
There are other cities that have entered into this agreement that we're aware of, correct?
There's other cities that are entering into agreements, a little bit different. When the state passed the law of allowing these companies to go into cities, they exempted cities that have their own municipal utility from their boilerplate language, that we could have our own language. So we added some things that we felt protected the city better, took out some things. To be honest, the lease agreement came one-sided in favor of Verizon, and we backed that off the other direction. And we were able to do that because we were exempted from the law because of our municipal utility. So this lease agreement is a little bit of a trendsetter for some of the other municipal utilities, but the non-municipal utilities have theirs kind of already set in stone.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Committee, the review, do you have anything? Okay. Do I have a motion to authorize execution of master lease agreement and subsequent supplemental agreements?
So moved.
Motion by Keith, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Dave. Any other questions, concerns? Call the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. 7E, approve easement agreement with Center Graphics.
Okay, so this agreement here pairs with the next option, which is approving the plans and specs, and they kind of could go either direction, because without this easement agreement, we can't do the plans and specs. But without the plans and specs, we really don't need the easement. So I think we'll just take them one at a time, and whether one is before the other, it doesn't really matter. So the city staff and the city engineer and the finance committee have been working to come to an agreement with Center Graphics for usage of the golf course property for the disposal of stormwater from our project. And you guys were familiar with that before. This kind of lays out the terms of how that agreement would work. So the easements would have, we'd have 2 ponds would be located on the golf course, one on Main Street North and one on Lakeshore Drive. And I think you guys had drawings of those at the last meeting, and you'll see them tonight in the PowerPoint. The city will install the infrastructure to the ponds. I mean, we'll get the water there, and then Center Graphics will construct the ponds to our specifications. And when I say our specifications, we're kind of thinking of having like an elevation and that many square feet at that elevation, and then that kind of gives them the ability to create the pond to fit into their golf course shape-wise, as long as we have the capacity. So that's what we're proposing. Then Center Graphics will receive a credit on their assessment for the savings the city incurs as a result of the reduced amount of storm pipe and structures that would otherwise be needed. So we would have a net assessment to Center Graphics, and what we're looking at right now, it's just under 65,000, of which 25,000 would go on the assessment roll right away, the same as if the house, that would be like for the golf clubhouse. So we kind of calculated out if that was a house, what it would be. And then the balance would be deferred until some time that they were to develop and needed access to this infrastructure that we're putting in. So along Country Club and along Main Street North, you know, if they were all of a sudden to be able to come in and want to access that with some development, if things change dramatically, then that would key that deferred assessment to come in. And then there could be a termination date out there in the future sometime. That's something that we would want to look at as well. So the Finance Committee met, and they think that this would be the best option for the city for 2 reasons. Number one, we're having a cost savings to the project, and number 2, it's an environmental. A lot of water is going to go to that golf course that otherwise was going to go to the lake. And then because of that, that may set us up for the opportunities for some other funding. And that's yet to be finalized, but that's something that we're looking at simply because of the infiltration and being able to take the sediment out and the phosphorus, taking that out of the lake. So we kind of have a verbal, I think I covered everything. Brady is here, Brady Click from Center Graphics, and if you have any questions of him or clarification, what we would do then is we would have, if the plan is approved, then we would have Tom Mayer draft up an easement agreement, and it would say, this is the legal description, this is the terms of the agreement, it would include a waiver of appeal, those kinds of legal jargon that would be on there. So that's kind of where we're at right now. It does not increase the assessment for any of the other people. We're passing on savings because we're able to use the golf course for water. Rather than putting it in the lake, we're able to remove a structure and some less pipe and things like that. That is cost savings for the city. So what we're kind of looking for tonight is kind of authorization that we can proceed with that. You know, I didn't engage the city attorney to write an easement agreement or anything until I know that the city council is kind of still going that same direction that we had talked before, and that we would have kind of tentative agreement with Center Graphics and that it fits with the project. So kind of 3 things going here at the same time.
Questions?
So you don't actually have an easement agreement for us to
I don't.
approve.
This is I
So
have
you're
to
looking
say,
for, you're really just looking for kind of a general consent to continue
right,
down
and then
this
we would
path.
actually, you'd actually see the written document probably at the next meeting if it's ready. So I guess when execution of the easement, it's more like proceeding along these lines with the easement agreement.
Okay.
Or approving the terms and conditions, maybe that's what the word is going to be.
Questions, concerns?
I guess my only thing is ordering the easement agreement, if it ultimately does not get signed between both parties, and we order the project tonight.
If you did approve the plans and specs tonight, and I don't know if you will, but if you do, and then something happens here that this doesn't happen, then I guess we wouldn't be able to award any bids.
Okay.
It's kind of a little bit of a leap of faith, I suppose, just to make sure that everything is right. I mean, Brady is here, and we've talked about this in emails back and forth. And so we've kind of got the terms agreed to, and it's just a matter of the council agreeing to it, and then we'll put it on paper.
And we can do it contingent on the signing, right? The specs, if we would do plans and specs,
You could.
you know, so,
Does that delay us even further though for
Well, it would,
going
it
out
would
for
delay
bids?
it a little bit further for him to be able to get the bids out there, to get the plans out there. I don't know if he's got more modifications he needs to make yet, or if they're ready to go. They're close.
but this here's a huge step. If we can get this taken care of right now, then that'll keep us from going back to square one on the whole works and maybe having to redesign a few other things. You know, this here has brought the cost of the project down, if this happens, quite a bit. And it's a benefit for the whole, plus the people that are bidding on it. You know, the bids might even come in lower yet, and it's even a better win-win for the city and the residents and everything. Besides, this is just kind of
Yeah, my understanding is that, I don't know what kind of a motion you'd be looking for. It sounds more like you're looking for the consent of the council to keep going.
I'm just kind of looking at, kind of approval that these terms and conditions I laid out are acceptable. You know, like how,
We're still going to see the agreement.
You'll still
before it's
see the
actually
agreement.
signed. We'll have to
Yeah.
approve
Right.
the final one.
you'll
so-
still see the agreement, yes.
So,
We'll still
that's,
see
it
it.
just sounds like it's not really,
Yeah.
not really approving anything. We're just saying, yeah, keep going.
right. And I think with Brady, you probably, or you're on board as of right now with the way she laid that out? Yeah, if you would, yeah. Kind of calm some nerves,
Do you want me to state my name?
if you want to,
Yeah,
yes.
Brady Click, President of Center Graphics. We are the owners of the golf course. And, you know, we're looking at trying to be as good as we can to the environment and help make, I realize, and we realize the city really wants to push forward with development along and preparing that area on Main Street North for development. As much as we might like to be able to develop some lots around the golf course, particularly on the Main Street side, it's just not realistic right now. We intentionally tried pre-selling some lots last summer to gauge interest, specifically because we knew that this project was coming forward and we needed to have some idea of whether or not it was feasible, and we would want to plat and have some space for homes along the golf course. But the reality is there just wasn't enough interest, and there's a significant amount of cost in moving around the portions of the golf course to be able to make it feasible. It's actually a very tight fit for any housing in there. So as long as we can put together a project that is, and I think what Vicki and I have been discussing is going to be acceptable for both the city and for us. Our main concern is that we don't have any huge assessments that we can't justify with the golf course, especially if we never end up utilizing the value of those assessments for any sort of a development. So if the golf course stays in an environment where it really is a green space that everybody benefits from walking around and seeing it and that sort of thing, that we don't have a tax assessment against it that logistically makes it such that we can't operate the course. It's a challenging environment to operate golf courses in Minnesota right now, and Sauk Center is definitely no different from that.
Okay. All right, sounds good. And one of the things that I look at is, you know, if we're putting the water into the golf course, to me, that's just an added feature for the golf course as far as an extra water hazard. You know?
And that's the logic behind, when Vicki and I started talking originally. The original idea was to have the city build the water retention ponds, and our feeling on that was we would want them to be an aesthetic part of the golf course, and as such, we felt more comfortable maintaining control of exactly what it looked like. We would expect certain specs that they would be built to, but we would want them maintained and built in a way that they look pleasing and complement the play of the course.
Right.
And that's the reason why we changed the original discussion such that we would Center Graphics would do the actual development of the building of those ponds and the maintaining of the ponds, because it's in our best interest that they look and play
Right.
in the best possible way.
Okay.
And you know, we also agree that trying to keep the water and letting it infiltrate into the golf course is best for the environment. And you know, we really want Sauk Lake and the Sauk River to, I like seeing how clean it is compared to when I saw the river and the lake when I lived in Sauk Center in second and third grade.
Right.
I remember the weed harvester.
Right.
And it's great that the weed harvester is gone, and I hate to see the weed harvester come back.
Right. Okay, thank
Thanks.
you, Brady. Any other questions, concerns, general consent to proceed where we're going with the agreement?
Yep.
And the final will come back to us to make
Yep.
sure everything's on board?
Agreed.
Okay?
Agreed.
Sounds good. Plans and specs, approve resolution 2018-11, approving plans and specs 2018 CIP project.
Okay, Chuck Bozer is here, and he has a little presentation to kind of show it. To show you, there's a couple items that we were looking at, probably looking for a little bit of direction, and those are outlined in your packet as items 1 through 6, and they're kind of like talking about the final design of the curb on Main Street North. You know, do we match into the surmountable curb on the north end, or do we do the other type of curb like it is on the south end? And I think the staff was recommending going with the surmountable, but we needed the council's approval on that. We were talking about bidding on a 2-year or a 1-year, and breaking it. He talked before about breaking it into a 2-year. We just want to make sure that that's the page that we're going down. And then we'll need some easements on the alley between 5th and 4th, no, between Country Club and 5th, between Elm and Lake Shore. So the utilities all run down that alley, and the alley, I think, is 12 feet wide. And so we have separation distances and stuff, so we'd be proceeding with alley easements. And also, if you recall, at Kate's Estates Drive, at the very mouth of it, we had some services put in there for future extensions to the west. And we're just confirming that that extension is not part of this plan. It's not going to be going across Main. Then I had the plans on the golf course, the plans to include the idea that we were going on to the golf course, and that I put in there, not sure how our agreement with Center Graphics would go at that point. And then they had Eagles Nest Sanitary Sewer comes across the open field there, and it connects in by 5th Street and Main Street, and there's some, so they could actually put a new service in, and we'd have a new service they could hook in at that location, rather than going around the other way. I don't know if you have that shown on your plan, or can explain that a little more better than I just did. And then the one last thing, we're recommending that we have a public information meeting to be held after the bid. We'll know who the contractor is, and we'll have a timeline. And then we'll be able to bring people in and answer their questions about the project itself. So that's something like maybe early May, that we maybe will have that before construction, but after the bidder is known. So it's kind of the things that we'd like to talk about. So there you go, Chuck.
Show off.
Yeah. Is that a sunfish?
We should go back to the former slide.
Yeah.
Find out where that was.
Yeah.
We know it wasn't on Sauk Lake.
Well, maybe what he's saying is that if we get some more clean water, that dirty stuff out, maybe.
I think he caught that fish with the weed harvester.
That is, Mike is on, right? Yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
Good evening, Council, Mr. Mayor. I'm here to present on the 2018 Capital Improvements Project for final plans, approval, and approval to bid.
You might have to unhook the mic and just carry it.
Up on the slide, you just kind of go through the project location again. As you are well aware, it includes 4th Street, 5th Street, Country Club, Main Street, Oak Street, Elm Street, the Elm Street alley between Elm and Lakeshore, and portion of Lakeshore on those dashed lines, as you can see. Just a little background, again, as you probably have seen this before. The reasoning behind this project, we do have aging and old infrastructure that we're looking to replace. And the red are the worst areas, yellow's next better, purple looks like is the best. So this just kind of compares the infrastructure condition to other areas. So you can see that this project will be taking care of some old infrastructure. Just going to jump into some details right away. On Main Street, we currently have an urban section in the design, including B618 curb and gutter, and a 10-foot wide bituminous path on the east side. We are lowering Main Street to collect drainage now, as that's what an urban section does, and it'll collect the stormwater drainage to the new pond on Main Street. In talking with the city, they expressed some interest in having surmountable curb instead of B618, so if there is any desire from the council to use surmountable versus B618, we can discuss that at a later time. For the 5th Street design, we did beef up the section to a 9-ton road design. The section 4, 5th Street, includes 2 additional inches of Class 5 aggregate base, an additional inch of pavement for a total of 4.5 inches of pavement and 10 inches of Class 5. Now this is a beefier section than the rest of the streets on the project that have 3.5 inches of pavement and 8 inches of Class 5. So they're 7-ton road designs. This one's a 9-ton road design. Just want to go over the water and sewer stubs for future tie-ins and the adjacent properties in the area. For the golf course, they currently have stubs off the W.H. Cates project. We are currently not extending them across Main Street. They're going to stay in where they are. We have stubbed water and sewer to the south edge of Fairway Pines. The south edge.
South edge of the Park property or Flowers property.
Is it Flowers? My bad. Flowers property. And water and sewer stubs to the Eagles Nest property, which Vicki kind of touched on there on the 5th Street intersection there, and it's a combination of the sanitary service that runs cross-country, but they can hook up to in the future for a sanitary service. This is the current phasing plan we have for the project. We split it up into 2 years for construction. For this year, 2018, we plan on constructing 4th Street, a portion of 5th Street, the south portion of Oak Street, and Main Street, as you can see from the solid line. The dash line is 2019 construction, which includes Country Club, the rest of Oak Street, Elm Street, the alley, and which is shown in Lakeshore. So that's the current phasing plan we have in place. This just kind of highlights the easements that we're looking at getting in the alley. Currently, the alley easement or right-of-way is 12 feet wide, as Vicki said. We were required to maintain a 10-foot separation from a water and sewer main, so 12 feet doesn't leave much room. So we're looking at getting around 10 feet of easement on each side. And this will kind of set up the alley for any future construction or anything down the road that happens in the alley. You should have plenty of room to handle that. So. We also have been working with MnDOT on a phasing plan. We are impacting Highway 71 traffic with our construction in the 4th Street and Main Street intersection. And this just kind of shows our plan that MnDOT's tentatively approved so far. We are handling the southbound traffic with a lane shift, so they'll stay on Highway 71, as you can see from the dashed line. And the northbound traffic will have to run a detour, as you can see from the solid line. We anticipate this detour to be up for 2 to 4 weeks, depending on construction, how it goes. It will happen in 2018, since that will be part of Phase 1. Jumping back in the storm sewer, this just shows our HydroCAD model that we have currently for the storm ponds. And for pipes, we designed the pipes for this project using the 10-year storm event and the rational method. For the pond designs, we've used the 100-year storm event for volume control. This kind of shows the overall storm layout. Hard to see the pipes individually, but you can see the 3 ponds in the storm scepter we have on the project. So the pond 1 is the 4th Street pond at the vacant lot south of Oak Street. Pond 2 is the Main Street pond located up on Main Street. Pond 3 is the Lakeshore pond located up on Lakeshore. And the storm scepter is shown where indicated on Lakeshore. We have ran a P8 modeling, it's called, for this storm system to give the watershed an idea of total phosphorus and total suspended solid removal for an annual basis. And we got pretty good numbers. Total phosphorus numbers for an annual removal is 46.9 pounds, and the total suspended solid removal is 16,882 pounds. And Vicki is currently working with the watershed for getting funds for the project because of those removals, so kind of happy with those, how they turned out. These next few slides just kind of show just the overall drainage area for each portion of the storm system for the 3 ponds and the storm scepter. So this just kind of outlines the drainage area that the 4th Street pond will handle. And this is the drainage area the Main Street pond will handle, going all the way up to Lakeshore. This is the area that the Lakeshore pond will capture. And this is the drainage area for the Lakeshore storm scepter. I just wanted to highlight the current or existing outlets to the Sauk Lake we have. We currently have 4. As shown by the arrows. We are eliminating the one on Country Club with this project, as shown the one being abandoned, so from 4 down to 3. And just wanted to recap on the goals with this project. For water main and sewer, the infrastructure is nearly 70 years old, aged beyond the expected service life for those utilities, and are near failure. So we'll be replacing those with new infrastructure. The water main, we're able to loop the trunk water main and connect to the north. And for this project, it allows higher capacity and for fire flows. And for the sanitary sewer, we're lowering the sanitary sewer on Main Street. And this additional depth allows us to provide a sewer stub to the Flowers property. And for the storm sewer, we have a greener storm system going with the additional 3 infiltration ponds and storm scepter. And this project will reduce the flooding on Lake Street and Main Street. It won't eliminate the flooding there, but we are reducing it because we are sending less water there. Elimination of the flooding will have to take place when Highway 71 project happens. For the streets, we are replacing the aging roadway and sidewalk, as you are well aware of the condition of the streets and sidewalk out there. And just overall, this project will provide a a better and safer pedestrian routes for everybody in the neighborhood. We did put together a construction cost summary, just did it today. So this is fresh off the press, but we have come up slightly lower than our feasibility report for construction. This is not project cost, it's just construction. Just wanted to highlight that. And the savings are, well, you know, they're close to what we were anticipating with the savings from the storm sewer. So that came out good. With that, I'd like to ask if there are any questions.
Are there provisions to provide access to the hospital at all stages of?
Yes.
Any other questions, comments? I did have one contractor get a hold of me and talk to me that for them it would be, if they were asking if it was a 1 year or 2 year project, I says, some of us were leaning like trying to get it all done in 1 year if we could. So our engineering firm wanted to see 2 years. They said that with the 2 year, it would include more contractors and probably get a better favorable bid. I was wondering, if we go out for bids, are we gonna put it in there that if, so they just don't start in July and then take it until freeze up, maybe they start sooner, and if they got a chance to get more done during the summer, they got the option to go into the next phase, rather than wait until the second year?
Yeah. So how we handle that, we don't necessarily specify a start date. We do specify a deadline for phase one, and that makes them start early enough to get all phase one done. We will allow, with this contract, if they get phase one done in September, early September, and they want to hammer out Lakeshore, let's say, we can allow them to do that. Or, you know, if they happen to throw,
As long as they get it done before.
that would have to be handled at that time, and you know, because that would take maybe some additional costs for tying in certain storm sewer, and so that would all have to be worked out at that time, and that'd have to have a new deadline that we'd have to agree upon, but we would allow them to, you know.
But it is an option,
Yes.
okay? Because I don't want to see, you know, if the project goes through, I don't want to see it drug out for 3-4 years. You know, if we do a 2 year project and they do a final lift, you're still already into 3. So then, if you keep doing this in steps, you could end up being 4 years, and that really defeats the purpose. Not defeats the purpose, but it's just a headache for everyone in the area for 4
Yep.
years.
We would have deadlines for the, you know, the second year that they would have to meet, and, you know, if they wouldn't meet any deadlines, they would have liquidated damages being assessed to them on that, and it gets, this project I split it up, or we split it up, kind of where it makes sense storm water wise, because if you start doing bits and pieces, and all of a sudden we have an area that drains water to an area that doesn't have storm sewer yet, we have temporary flooding issues, so, you know, that's where added costs will come in if they want to start doing extra chunks, so we'd have to work downstream up on that additional spot, but, you know, like I said, that'll all have to be worked in when they get to it.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Curb on Main Street. I think we had,
I thought we discussed that.
discussed that curb on Main Street like 3 times. And I think we had decided it was gonna be 6-inch urban design. The surmountable wall wasn't part of the package. We were gonna go with an actual curb. That's the reason why you would had to cut the road down a little farther to have enough fill on the back side of it, of the curb.
I mean, unless there's some reason why we're going back to that.
Yeah.
It's just some interest from city staff. They prefer some surmountable. My opinion, we're okay with either. You get, with each curb, the point of curb and gutter is to drain water, and both those types of curb accomplish that. So So it's just on personal interest or what they want to use that road for, see the road for, and if Matt want to come up and say a few words.
Basically, like, what I'm looking at is it would match the lake shore, the north addition, everything out east. If you were to go, say, from Country Club north, and then also if you carried the east side of Main Street all the way down to 71 with Surmountable, because that way, any future development on that east side anywhere along there would not need a curb cut. You'd maintain your original curb line. And every time you do a curb cut, there's always some impacts to grade. And it also impacts additional costs to the residents. And it allows better drainage onto the street also. So it would, for me, it's an aesthetic thing, plus that down the road, it's less maintenance. So that's why I would propose it, plus it matches what is existing in the north end. So if, you can, for some of the radiuses, you could raise it if there's some concern that way, but there really ain't. It's pretty straight. So it'd be just entrances.
Okay.
Okay. I guess I don't have a problem with that. I know we went with Surmountable up around Kate's, and I vaguely recall being told it was actually a little cheaper. We had thought it was more expensive. They said it was actually less.
Right.
So I certainly don't have any problem with it.
The only concern I ever had with Surmountable is that, you can drive off the road at any point in time and
Believe me, they do
there's
that
no
anyway.
reason, well, I know, but it's a little harder to jump a 6-inch
Just a little
curb,
bumpier.
To drive up into a yard where now anybody can drive over the curb and do whatever they want, and it controls traffic just a little bit better, I would think. Especially, it's on the golf course side. If you got some ownable over there, nothing saying anybody can't take a free trip across the fairway, and because now they don't have to jump a 6-inch curb to get there.
Yep.
If they really want to do it that bad, they will, but to me, it's
Yeah.
hinders things a little bit, but, it's what's the council's wishes as far as surmountable or,
I mean, all things considered, the potential for other development on the east side of the road up there, I think it's pretty much all committed right now. There's not much left.
right, so would the curb make a big difference?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't see that matters much one way or the other.
Right,
It would be consistent, but sooner or later, there's going to be a transition from surmountable to non-surmountable curbs. It's going to happen somewhere.
right. Any other comments, concerns? He's looking for direction if we go ahead and approve the plans and specs so we can go out to bids. We need to know where we gotta
Okay.
go on this
Well, I guess
situation.
if there's no compelling reason why we would want surmountable curbs there other than aesthetics, then let's just leave them with the regular curbs,
Leave it the way we've been
the
talking.
way we've been talking, yeah.
Sounds good.
Because I know it's been at least 3 times we've talked
Yeah.
about it, and we always come up with the same discussion, so we stay with the 6-inch curb. General consent?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution 2018-11 approving plans and specs and authorizing bids?
I'll make the motion.
We have a motion by Diane, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Heidi. Any other comments or concerns? Call the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. And just one comment for the public, this doesn't mean that it's actually gonna happen. We're gonna go out for bids, and if the bids come in too high or the timelines don't work, the council still has the ability to stop the whole process. So this isn't a cut and dried thing. 7G, accept park board resignation.
Okay, this is a park board resignation. Continued absence from an appointed city board position may result in removal from those positions. The city does consider 3 or more continued absences as resignation if we're not informed about them. Mark Magnuson is a member of the park board. He last attended a meeting on September 5th, and the park board requests that a member be appointed that has a schedule that would allow him or her to attend the meetings. I did reach out to him to see if maybe an alternate time or whatever would work, but I have had no response. And so the park board is requesting that we accept the resignation of Mark Magnuson from the park board.
Questions, concerns?
So we have no formal resignation letter. This is just being treated as a resignation.
This is being treated as a resignation by absence.
Right.
Right.
Do I have a motion to accept the resignation of Mark Magnuson from the park board?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Diane, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Dave. Call the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. 7H, approved classification of tax forfeited properties.
Okay, Stearns County has presented 2 properties to the city that have forfeited due to non-payment of taxes that they propose to sell. Actually, it forfeits to the state, but the county is who sells those on their behalf. Both of the properties have homes on them. One of the homes has been slated for demolition by the city, and it could be removed or it could be removed via controlled burn by the fire department. That's another option that we're looking at, and the county is okay with that. If we want to do a controlled burn, we would be responsible for it, of course, but they have plans for that house to be removed. The county is requesting that we approve the properties to be offered for sale. If the city wishes to retain either of the properties, we can do so by paying to the county the minimum amount that is indicated. The 2 houses that are on the tax forfeiture is 200 North Ash Street. It has an appraised price by the county of $20,000. It has outstanding assessments of $2,657.87. This is the one that is adjacent to the public property where we talked about having the sledding hill. It is the one that has that gully, I guess you would call it, with all the debris and the concrete and stuff over the edge. So it'd be problematic to build in because the back of it is pretty much, I would say 90% of this lot is in the floodplain, although there is a building site up by the road. So this would be the house that if the city council wishes to retain, that this would be the one that we would do. And the other house is 700 Grove Lake Street, and that has an appraised price of $30,000. So what the county is requesting tonight is that the city council approve offering the property for sale, or if we wish to purchase one of them, that we would wait and talk to them about that first. So I guess it's up to the city council. We've talked about the 200 North Ash Street, about the city. We attempted to purchase it at one time in the past, and we were not successful because there's an outstanding mortgage on the property, and that mortgage would have to be satisfied, and so we couldn't reach an agreement with that. How it works on tax forfeiture is you get a state deed. It does not give you clear title. If the city owns something with clear title, it's not that problematic unless we wanted to sell it again. But if someone else bought it without clear title, they'd have to quiet the title in order to, or pay off the mortgage in order to get a mortgage to build a house on it. So it's more than just buying a vacant house and tearing it down and building a new house. There's some title issues there as well. So I don't know, what is the council's thoughts? I mean, we've talked about that 200 North Ash in the past. I don't know if the county would consider a lesser dollar amount since we would have costs of demolition, or this,
Yeah.
this 20,000 is if they've already demolished it.
So that's the outstanding assessments are 2657?
Those outstanding assessments are mainly for garbage bills and for the city mowing the property these years,
Okay.
is what those are for.
So the county would get it and they would try to sell it for $20,000? And we don't get any of that?
We get a portion of the forfeited sales. We get about 10%. The majority of the tax forfeit sales goes to the county's road and bridge fund.
Okay.
So we get a small portion of
We
it
do
back.
get a portion of it then, since we've been doing the,
So we get a little of it back, not a great deal.
Okay.
but-
Is it an option that if we just go ahead and let the county offer it for sale, and then after a certain period of time, if it's still up for sale, if nobody bought it, we could probably make an offer for a lesser price?
What they do is, and this has happened before too, they have a higher price and nobody buys it. And then it'll sit on the inventory for a while for someone just to buy over the counter at that price. And then if it still doesn't sell, then you can ask the county to reduce the price. Then they'll send this back to the city again to see if the new price is okay. And at that point, we have the option to buy it at that price. So there is a process to get these properties back on the market, I guess you would say, or on the tax rolls.
See, for right now, I don't know, personally, I don't think that the city needs to spend $20,000.
No.
And nothing against the fire department using it for training to burn it down, but it's to spend $20,000 for them to burn it down. And then we have no plans for what we're gonna do with the vacant lot afterwards, other than keep mowing it, which we already are doing.
Yeah.
To me, it's a waste of taxpayers' dollars.
I believe that as far as the controlled burn for the fire department training, I think the county would let us do that anyway before they
I
sell
was
it.
gonna say,
Okay,
Yeah.
all right,
I mean, there's cost to doing that because you can't just
Right.
burn a house anymore without
yeah,
going through those procedures.
right. So, what's the council's wishes?
I think that I'd make a motion approving, releasing the properties, I guess, what.
Okay. Your motion is to approve offering properties for sale or
Yep.
purchase the
Well,
property.
to put 'em up
to
for sale,
Offer the
just-
properties for sale, okay.
Yep.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Dave, second by Heidi, to approve the offering of the properties for sale. Any other questions or comments? Call the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. Unfinished business, stormwater utility credit policy
The
committee.
policy committee has been assigned to meet on creating a stormwater utility credit policy. I have not forgotten that. We're gathering up some different information, how different cities go about doing that, so we make sure we have that. I will be getting that committee together in the next few weeks to try to start hammering that out. I do have a request from somebody that wants to apply for a stormwater utility credit, so it kind of prompted us to go ahead and get this policy in place. And then, of course, that'd be a policy for everybody. So it's just like, what kinds of things do you have to do to take care of your own water to exempt yourself from this, is really what we're looking at. So,
Okay. Any questions on that? We have no new business. It now brings us to the consent agenda. We have schedule of claims, unpaid claims of $175,467.79, paid claims of $768.03, for a total of $176,235.82. We have Resolution 2018-12, accepting contributions of $197 from the Men's Card Playing Group to be allocated to the Senior Center, and $170 from Minnesota National Bank to be allocated toward the ambulance. I want to thank those two groups for their contribution to the city. Is there any questions? Otherwise, I'll be looking for a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Heidi. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Diane. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. Informational items, annual financial audit and federal audit.
that is starting next week. We've been uploading documents and trying to get everything ready, so they'll be here all next week. Somebody on the council will be called to come in and visit with the auditors. I'd just like to gauge your level of comfort with how we handle the finances of the city, and if you suspect or identify anything that is a cause of concern. So I think various ones of you have had this meeting with the auditors before. I can't say which one of you will be called this time, so we'll find out next week.
You said uploading documents?
We have a portal that we have all of our work papers and everything for the audit, and we upload them to a portal, and they can look at them and download it. Our audit is now completely paper-free.
Okay.
So we actually get a paper book, and when we're all done, but all the information that we give them, we upload it electronically.
I can't-
We do have paper backup, though.
Can't hear very good. I thought you said shredding documents, so.
We shred them, too.
Okay, that brings us to the end of our agenda. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Dave, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Keith. Call the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. Meeting adjourned.